Login accepted.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the tech capital of the world, Kernersville, North Carolina. Bobby Davis, CEO and founder of Foundry. And Kevin, it has been a while since we've been live.
I know.
What have we been up to? What have we been doing? Have we been traveling the world or doing anything or like anything cool?
Know. Have we? We traveled the world? Traveled the world?
We've been working. That's the thing we've been doing. Yeah. So, you know, like... Yeah.
We had a slightly longer introduction today just because it's been a while since we've used this streaming setup. Yeah. So I want to make sure that everything was still working and make sure that's still, We're
all the cobwebs out of here.
Yeah,
so that's what we had to do.
Exactly. That's what we did. There's a bunch of people here. You want to say hey?
Yeah, we'll say hello to a lot of people. Let's do it.
Let's see. Make sure our comments still work. There we go. Jandre's here. It's been a while. It has been a while.
Yeah.
My number one guy, C. Alantonio, is here.
2025, baby. Let's go.
I like that you kept the same name too.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. Dom Music wants to know where we've been and what's new and what's good at Coder Foundry.
We're good at Coder Foundry. We've still been teaching classes. We have been working on our new course that's getting ready to come out soon. But we've been doing that for a year.
I'm sure we'll talk about that because someone's bound to ask about it. We'll talk about that probably towards the end, unless somebody asks about it.
It's the largest thing we've built in a while, so for sure.
Conway's here too. It says, hey everyone, not sure how long I can stay. I was told my architect. Okay. Hang around until you can't. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Brian says happy 2020.
Hey, Brian. What's up?
And Shane's here too. Shane, long time no speak, buddy.
What's up? Happy New Year, Shane. Hope everything's well with the family.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So what we're talking about today? We're gonna do these regular, by the way, right? That's the first thing we should probably talk about. We're gonna try and do these every Tuesday again.
Every Tuesday at noon. We're gonna be on a new schedule every Tuesday at noon. We're gonna come back and start doing these. So see if you guys show up. We'll keep doing them.
Yeah. We missed talking on these.
We're gonna talk about the same kind of things we've been talking about for the last, all the time. Let's talk about web development.
Time has moved on, but the themes really haven't.
Yeah. So, and then there's a lot of consternation on social media and things like that. We've got like AI on the loose, this H-1B fiasco with Elon Musk and Twitter. If you're on Twitter, what does that mean for me as a developer? Can I even get a job anymore? Like, is it just done? I mean, so if you read Reddit, we should just pack up computers and just go away because AI is taking over everything. We shouldn't learn how to code anymore because the jobs aren't going to be there.
Yeah.
And so, we've been doing consulting this year. We've been doing a lot of things this year. In addition to teaching classes and teaching people how to use Blazor, we're still placing people into jobs. So our perspective is different than most. We don't come at it from like, hey, this is what we think is going to happen. This is what is happening to us. And what are we doing? Do people still hire developers? And that's like, yeah. So is there enough developers in the marketplace? No, it's not oversaturated, or there wouldn't be 15,000 openings. I think here's the main thing that people mistake for learning how to code is that they think the skills are down here. And they say junior developer is HTML, CSS only or something like that. When really it's more closer to full stack development up here, where you got to know some back end, you got to know the front end, you know CSS, you need HTML, you need to know some kind of JavaScript, and you need a back end language like C#. Now, what is true is Microsoft's made some great inventions over the last couple of years with the advent of Blazor and C#, and that continues to be really strong in the marketplace. And so these inventions are coming out. People are getting jobs, but only the higher skilled people are getting jobs. I think one of our instructors here at Foundry told a student this was leaving. He says, they're no longer taking volunteers like they did in 2020.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
You actually have to prove it now, and so it's back to like.
But that's something we've always kind of pushed though, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've always wanted our students to be up here versus like the bare minimum just to get in the door. It's just that now you're right, on social media it was always talking about this bare minimum to get in. We've always wanted it to be up here. Now it really is up here. So now our students meet the criteria still. That's what we've always pushed that, and I like that.
Yeah. And so for 2 years, I would say maybe 3 years, 19, maybe 18 and 19 to 2022, before the layoffs started happening, it was just probably the greatest job market we've ever seen for developers. Having said that, if it came back to like normal, it's still the number 1 or number 2 hiring job in the US. And so what people don't understand is, as the economy, if you think the economy's been down over the last 2 years, depending on who you vote for president, you think one way or the other. And I say it doesn't really matter. It's all relative to whatever, it's still going to be the number 1 or 2 hired position in any economy, whether that's down or up. It's going to be the number 1 or 2. The other one may be nursing. Like if you want to be a nurse or a doctor, that's a job.
We were talking about this earlier. This isn't often a choice for people. It's not, do I want to be a developer or a nurse? It's like you fit into one of those kind of 2 groups generally. It's like there's not much there's not much crossover there. So it's like either you gravitate towards one of those or the other. You're more technical or not. It's like those are the 2 best jobs, and it's just that's the way it is. So
is the pay scale as high as it was in 20? I think there's been some correction. And I'll be the first one to say this. Some of the salaries that came out in 2020 were just like, wow, if you can get that, go for it. That's like NFL money there. So I think that's come down a little bit, but that's not saying that people are making minimum wage either. Still, 3 to 5 years of experience. If you're a full stack web developer, you're doing pretty well at this point, compared to everyone else in the US. I mean, for sure, the salaries are still really, really high. And that's the draw to this market, is like, I can make more in a relatively short amount of time compared to other professions. I would say this, the barrier to entry is a little bit higher, or perceived barrier to entry is higher. We've always thought it was up here. Like, you've got to know some stuff to get a development job. You just can't say, I want to be a developer, and in 2 weeks become one. I don't think that's the case here at all. And so I think that you have to spend a lot of time. The second thing that we're seeing in the marketplace is people tend to give up in their job search way sooner than they should. We'll see they'll get one rejection notice and then they just quit. And they never really go back and analyze, why did I lose? And so what was it about that interview process that I didn't do well from? And then the other thing that we see in the marketplace on Reddit, not with our students, but with other bootcamp grads or self-taught learners, is I sent out 1,000 apps and I can't find a job. No one will hire me. And it's just but they've never really investigated, because people are using AI tools to submit applications. Yeah. And I'm telling you, that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And so if you're sending out 1,000 applications, but you used AI to send them, what are you complaining about? Like you did next to zero work. Don't tell me it's a grind when you're just automating the entire thing. So I don't think the law of large numbers works like you would think in a job search. You can't just shotgun it out to every single thing. What you need to do is really look at your resume, really look at your skills, name check your skills in your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and you got to have a portfolio. And then apply to jobs that are hiring for those skills.
Got to make sure they match, right?
Yeah, bring it down. You don't have to apply to 1,000. Find really 10 good ones a week and apply to ones that you're a match for. And then the other mistake job seekers make is they don't follow up when they apply. Just call them. Just call them on the phone and say, "Hey, I applied. What do you think?" And that's the other thing that's what we do here at Coder Foundry. So when a student leaves the program here, we call companies for them. We try to engineer interviews. That's what we call an engineering interview, by calling companies, emailing them and saying, "Hey, we've got these candidates with this amount of skills. They just applied. What do you think?" And that usually works. I mean, usually we can engineer interview, and that's up for the student to be able to interview pretty well. You gotta win the role. They're not going to just give it to you. So I think that's what's been going on, Kevin. I think the job market's pretty strong, but should we talk about AI in general and kind of allay some fears of what I really think's happening?
Yeah, we can do.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to talk before we talk about AI stuff? Let's talk about like job market stuff. Let's talk about I don't know how much you want to talk about the H-1B thing.
Yeah.
Because it came up as a topic a couple weeks back, and I hadn't seen it, and you told me, it was like, you see this thing on Twitter or X?
It was all over the place. People arguing, like, it's like, wow, like suddenly you can say the right-wingers are against Elon, the left-wingers are against, everyone attacked Elon because he said something that
which, I'm all for. I'm all.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're for it. Like, I'm here for it. Elon needs a little taking down a notch,
Sean did point out now, by the way, that it is X now, not Twitter. I'm never going to call it X. Sorry, Sean.
I think it's, X.
It's always going to be Twitter.
To us, like we'll be old guys, 70.
You're going to be boomers Twitter. Calling it Twitter. You remember that Twitter thing? I'm still on it.
Yeah.
But the H-1B thing blew up, didn't it? I remember one day, like, I came in and we chat, and you were like, "See this H-1B thing?" And I'm like, "No," and I look it up, and I'm like, "Wow, it's like all over the news. Like, why are we talking about this all of a sudden?"
And so what he's saying is that there aren't enough qualified candidates in the U.S. to take engineering roles. And so when he's saying engineering, you got to look at Elon. It's probably thinking some software, but probably in his case, in his mindset, engineering is you launch a rocket.
It's rocket scientists.
Yeah. You're building a car. You're building Tesla cars. Yeah. Engineers there. But we can boil that all the way down to software development, because that's where it really went to. Like, in other words, like everyone at X is like, "Oh, so you're saying that no one in America, us Americans, can't do these roles?" And my answer is no, but you have to be educated. It's not something that you can just apply to and get.
Right. Just because you're local. Right. You still have to be qualified.
You got to be qualified to do these roles. And so I think there has been a lack of understanding of like what it takes to be a developer over the last, say, 5 years, where it's a lot lower. Like we're saying, a lot of people are like lowering their expectations of what they think they need to know and trying to do the absolute bare minimum. And what we say is, we don't do what's easy, we do what's necessary. And so once you understand what's necessary for you to get a job, then it's a whole lot easier to get a job. And I can tell you this, in our experience, when we're placing students out of the cohorts here, if you talk to companies directly, they absolutely, number one, H-1B is a barrier to hire. If you're coming in on H-1B inside the U.S., it is a barrier that you have to overcome with the hiring company.
Yeah, we'll sometimes on the recruiting side, like, have a senior role, right, that we're posting for, and they'll literally have in the thing like no H-1Bs, or we'll reach out and say, "Hey, we have the perfect candidate," and we'll go through this thing, and then we'll say, "And it's an H-1B," and they'll say no. That's way more common than being like, "We want an H-1B," but the narrative that we saw in the news was like, "No, they only want H." Like, whoa, that's not what's happening at all in the field.
Yeah. And it derailed to some baser things that, like, people come out with racist things about, like, Indians only hire Indians, and, like, and all this kind of stuff. And so Indians control the entire job market. Therefore, as you're a white American, you can't get a job. And I'm like, that is so 100 complete. And I'm going to use my new word today. That's rubbish, Kevin. We were talking about that word before. That is rubbish. It's absolute rubbish, because we see it all the time that if you're based in the U.S. and you're a green card or a U.S. citizen, companies are more likely to hire you. Now, does Amazon want to hire more H-1Bs than they have U.S. citizens? I don't think so, but they're the largest holder of H-1Bs in the country. So Amazon and a company called Cognizant, if you know what they are, those are the two top hirers. Of those two, they hold 5,000 H-1Bs. And you're thinking, in the entire U.S., that's like, there's only 5,000. No, there's 15,000 openings today. You can go look on, type in web developers, 15,000 web developers right now. And that's not engineers. That's not AI engineers or, help desk engineers or automation or anything like that. We're just looking at web developer. And so like, there's a lot to this industry, and I don't think H-1Bs even scratch the surface of the amount of openings there are. And I really believe this: if you're highly skilled in this marketplace, there's always a place for you. Like, especially if you're a U.S. citizen and you have an absolute advantage. Language barrier is not there. You live locally more than likely to the place. You're more likely rooted in the area that you're in. You're not a transient employee. So like, there's a lot of things that they look at, and they're like, okay, I think I want to hire this person over that other person. But
right,
skill trumps everything. You've got to have the skills to do this. And we don't invest in high school education and STEM skills. We don't do it like we should. I mean, I think the U.S. government should step up and say mandate STEM or like have better STEM programs from K through 12. We still, to this day, at higher education and four-year colleges, we don't teach STEM very well in those educations either. And you think we would. We have a few schools that are really good. But if you go to a random college, in your local area, the STEM program's probably not that great. It's okay. Right. Yeah. It's not that great.
And hence, never cutting edge, are they? That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like when I did a degree in interactive media. And when I did that, the technologies that were used they're on the way out. It had Flash portion in it.
Right, yeah.
Like
it's like,
like a Flash script portion. I'm like, it was dead then. Like, what are we doing? Like, and it was already dead. And I'm like, why are we teaching this? It's just because they knew how to do it, and it was just part of the curriculum, and change the curriculum here is like a nightmare, so they just don't change it. It just sits around, so we don't end up with cutting edge stuff. Which is probably why Coder Foundry exists, because we do cutting edge stuff.
Boot camps exist in general.
We do the stuff that's cutting edge and in demand, because that's the way that we figure it out. We don't teach what's easy, we teach what will get you a job. So I guess that makes sense. We need more like us, I think. More
of it, so like, and then, for example, if you want to learn Blazor right now and be competitive in the Blazor market, I think we're the best option in the US by far. I mean, but there may be some other options, some other courses you could take, but there's not many. And you're not going to go to any college in the US. And if you're a college guy out there and you're teaching Blazor, like, chat us up, tell me, I'll give you props on it. I doubt you're going to learn Blazor in any college in America. I don't care if it's from MIT to Berkeley, Cal to whatever you want. They're always going to teach more baser level things. The problem is full stack development requires you to know certain things, and I see this debate all the time. Should I learn a framework? 100% absolutely should learn a framework. That's what they're hiring you for. Right. But you do have to know stuff before you can really understand the framework. And so we walk you through that process. So you can't just jump to the framework first, like React, if you don't know anything about JavaScript. So that's where people mistake. And so colleges stay at the baser level, but when you go out and try to compete for a job, you need to know these specific things to compete actively for a job. So it doesn't really matter if you have a CS degree, but if you've never put together a React app or a Blazor app before and they're hiring for that, it's hard for them to hire you, because another person will come in and say, all right, I know how to do that. And they'll hire that person over you. And that's why you got to be competitive. And that's why you need to also restrict your search to the things you know how to do. And so that you can match up.
Here's a comment from Sean too. We were talking about this earlier too.
Yeah.
Said he would agree that H-1B isn't a huge issue for devs working in the US. You're more likely to see outsourcing to an overseas company, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
And that's always been the case.
That's always been the case for a long 25 years. Like, since web development started, the banks and everything else have outsourced jobs.
And they go through these cycles of like offshoring, onshoring, offshoring, onshoring, offshoring. It's like, it's this weird, I don't know what we're on at the minute, but we're on one of them.
Yeah. And there's always going to be that demand where you can offshore stuff. I can still say, as a consulting company, we still do remote work for companies. Like, we still do it. We're onshore. And what trumps everything is skill. If you have lots of skill, they're going to hire you and you'll command a higher price, so that's because you have lots of skill, and there's some problems with offshore. And then there's some companies that won't use an outsourcing consultancy because they don't want to have especially India. It's a 12-hour time difference between you and them. There's usually a language barrier, something like that.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of issues that you got to work through. I'm not saying they can't do the job. I'm just saying that for me, you know, stateside resources are a lot of times superior to the outsourced resources.
We were also talking earlier about the H-1B process too, which is why a lot of companies don't do it, because it's not super easy. While Amazon does it and large companies do it, they have the money and the time and the expertise to be able to
attorneys
do it. Exactly. Your local guy down the street isn't going to think he can save some money by getting an H-1B person because it's not that simple. Firstly, it's not going to end up saving the money. It's going to cost them a fortune to get the thing in the first place. Because you do have to.
And then you end up paying the salaries kind of the same too. So like, you know, H-1Bs have to be equivalent to what the other job is. Now, what do you pay a software developer? There's a range from that, from like, you know, 40,000 to whatever you want to pay. And so there's probably not a hard and fast rule where maybe an H-1B would work cheaper. But you've also got to factor in, I've got to get them in. I've got to sponsor them. I've got all these other kind of regulatory requirements for me to get them in. And it's a little bit more difficult for small companies, or I'd say something they just don't even want to do.
Yep. And
so whereas they just want to hire a guy, make an offer, and if they feel like they're the same or kind of equal, they'll pick the easier road to get hired. So I think if you're in the market and you're listening to me and you're in the U.S., you have a green card, you're a U.S. citizen, dude, you have an absolute advantage. Like you do. Like you're going to be hired if you have the skills, but you got to get the right skill in. Yep. And that's the biggest thing.
And actually, we've seen this. Sean said, I've seen several companies, friends work, trained outsource replacements in. The idea of saving money over if it's crashing down a year later, but ultimately didn't work. We've literally had personal experience of this over the last year or so. So we've seen this on jobs, 100%.
Yep. We've been hired to go fix those things. So like, you know, like,
exactly.
So like
it's like, oh, you messed it up. Yeah, we'll fix it.
Now the kind of person that I am, I would be like, if I was a highly skilled web developer and they came into me and said, hey, can you train your replacement? I would probably go, sure.
It'll be an A1 job this.
Let me call my recruiter. I'm like, I think I'm moving. I think I'm going to go find something else to do. I'm not finishing that training gig, So like, but that's, but sometimes you don't have a choice, and like, that's your job. And like, you got to do what you got to do. So.
Yep, definitely. Paul's here, by the way. He says, Happy New Year, everyone.
What's up, Paul? Paul has started cycling now, getting away from jiu-jitsu because he hurt his shoulder.
Oh,
I need to tell him about that.
Yes. Shoulders might not be safe. Shoulders might not be safe.
I tore 4 ligaments in my shoulder cycling, Paul. So just to let you know, like it's not safe no matter what you do.
Well, you did wreck, but
yeah.
But it happens.
But they say there's 2 types of cyclists in the world, Kevin. 2.
What's that?
1 that went over the handlebars. 2, the one that is going over the handlebars. They haven't done it yet.
It's just time.
It's just time that you're going to wreck that bike. So
Oh, that's funny. Let's see here. Ryan says 3 years. Coming up on 3 years as a dev, which I think actually also there's another comment here too, which I saw. Sean talking about this in Discord too.
Yesterday. Sean. Yeah.
3-year compensation review coming up this afternoon. 3 years as a dev, still based on a lot of stuff you guys talk about the boot camp when it released. Yeah, that's awesome. Good luck with that too, Sean. I know you're looking at like the 6-figure.
Get paid. Let's do it. I like it.
Awesome. So, did you see that in Discord, by the way? Did you
I did right before we came online. I was reading
it. Because he was talking about how they get praising him at work. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
Awesome to see. Yeah, I love that. There we go. Let's see. We do a couple more comments too before we talk about AI. Because
Oh yeah. So Shane wants to know the T-shirt. Yeah, you can pick this baby up. Get committed T-shirt at coderfoundry.com. Yeah, shop.
There is a link. I think I haven't done these for a minute, but I'm pretty sure there's still a link down there.
Yeah, go to shop.coderfoundry and buy us a T-shirt. Buy a T-shirt from me and Kevin. So Kevin made this. It's kind of cool. It's a Kevin Doyle original. So
it is. Handmade.
Handmade, not AI made. Handmade.
Not AI. We were talking about that this morning too. So, at some point there's going to be the sticker that goes on everything that says "human made" or "made by humans for humans." Let's do a couple questions.
Is it a good idea to use Blazor? Absolutely, 100. Like I'm telling you right now. So
we're exclusively building stuff with this now.
Yeah, we're exclusively building it for customers, for other things like that. So like, it's really, 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 really cool. I'm glad you're working on the React. It'll serve you well. I do think that if you're building out web API backends already, you'll find Blazor really cool. So we are going to be releasing a course soon. But if you can't wait for whenever a course is, sign up for our in-person cohorts. Been teaching Blazor the last year, and we're taking that learning from that education and turning it into an online course. So it's been a long time coming, but when you see it come out, you'll see why it took us a year. So
yeah,
like,
which was one of the other questions here too, by the way.
Yeah.
New things coming to the online surface.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Like the guys are recording as I'm doing this right now, and they're typing away, coding up. So.
Yeah, and one of the reasons it's taken us so long to build this is we've kind of hit the drawing board a few times on it because it's difficult to build this thing that is a moving target, and we have to put a stake in it.
Yeah,
it's difficult.
The other thing too is what is more advanced in here. So like when you had MVC, you already have an architectural design pattern MVC, and then with Blazor and auto rendering components, you had to come up with an architecture to make this work. And so that went through several iterations. And I think that one of the strong advancements that from this course, not only are we teaching you Blazor, not just the basics, but how are you going to do this at a professional level in the enterprise? Like, what are guys going to adopt to make this work? Because it's very up to you, the coder, to figure out these, how to put this in production, And so like Blazor is very unopinionated, like do it this way, and this is the way to do it. I think that's by design by Microsoft, but at the same time, when you have auto rendering components, it becomes kind of difficult. So combined with us teaching it and building things and then building things for customers, we kind of shook that out over the last year. And like, we're really, really proud of the architectural design that you'll learn inside of Blazor. And it's going to be the only place like it on planet Earth. Like when we do it, like no one else is really doing it. I'm sure there's people doing it professionally that are on YouTube that say, yeah, that's how you do it. But like, I think as far as learning content, it's super.
It took some time to build some actual things, didn't it? To realize, this is the way you really should be doing
you got to do this. Okay, here's the problems you run into. The main thing is a WASM component or a WebAssembly component runs on the client, and then server-side components run on the server side. And those two things can never meet. But you don't want to rewrite every component twice. You want it to run in the auto mode, and then so it can determine where's the best place to run this at. Therefore, in some situations, you communicate over HTTP. In some communications, you communicate directly to the server. If you want to use one component for that, how do you make it decide which one to do? And that's what we've built out. And I will say, in all objective, it's pretty slick what we built. So, I'm sure if you're writing Blazor in here, you probably know what I'm talking about, so.
Oh, do you know this too, by the way?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's supposed to be a 1.
Yeah.
0 to 10 years out of CF.
Not 0 years.
Not 0 years. Yeah, I'm assuming that's supposed to be 10. Which probably is right, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Shane said it is. You should know.
I guess. I think that just makes you old, Shane. I think that's all that does.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That is crazy. Okay, let's talk about AI specifically. Let's there was this. You sent me this earlier because let's talk about this Reddit article which had the title, by the way, that Copilot is rubbish. Which way
that's what he said. I love that word.
But you particularly you gravitated to this comment, which we were talking about.
Yeah, just read that comment.
Yeah, it says using it in C# with Visual Studio 2022, Copilot fueled. Correct. IntelliSense code completion is useful 90% of the time, but the prompt-based chat is garbage for some reason.
100%.
And you're like, yes. You said this to me, and you were like, yes, this guy knows what's up. Why is this?
In general, Copilot, there's two parts of it. You have code completion. You're typing along, and you get what's called ghost text. This grayed out ghost text. That's a suggestion based on what you're typing, and also sometimes based on like the document that you're in, so like it tries to like figure out what you want to type next. 90% of the time is probably a little strong for me. I would say it's more like 70, 80. You've watched me code up the self-paced course and you're editing, you'll see the ghost text come up and you'll notice how many times I don't take the suggestion.
From what I've seen, it's less than that. I say you take it half the time, maybe. Actually,
Yeah.
you might even take it less than half the time.
Yeah. So there's two things going on. Number one, as a developer, you have to read the ghost text pretty quickly to understand like what it's doing. And then, so you have to understand that. So AI in general, if you don't know what you're doing, will never really help you. Copilot will help you some, but it's never going to make you a developer only. You can't just start typing in. Like people say, I'm going to just start typing in cursor. I'm going to make my app now. I don't need a developer anymore. It's just not true. For anything of any significance, you need it. The second part of it, I would say, is when you go into chat, like a chat interface, and you try to type it in, and it tries to insert stuff into your code and stuff like that. I do think that's garbage. I just don't do that at all. And what I'm doing is I'm using Copilot for suggestions. When I need to do research or needs to do something else, I'm pulling over to ChatGPT. So I pay for both. And then I'm using that to make sure that this is what I want. And then I control where it gets inserted. Because a lot of times it'll insert it wrong and then like it's broken. And you're like, what did it just do? Let me back all that out and just, and so it ends up costing you time versus being a really great experience. Will they improve that? Here's what I think. I think code completion tools, what you're seeing now is what I'm going to call near peak. Like it is kind of where it's going to be. Is there room for improvement? 100%. Is that room for improvement going to be, I can just talk to the app and generate an app and just, no, that is not anywhere near present future. Like that's not close at all. Like if you're coding, you know that it's not close at all. And if you read this Reddit, these are all developers on Reddit, and you can see their experience with this, and they're like, it's cool. It helps me. Is it making me 10x? No one's saying that. Only GitHub is saying that. It's gonna make me
Only somebody
10
selling it
times
to you is
faster
saying
what I'm doing. Yeah, but it's not making me a 10x developer. And maybe I'm using it wrong. I'm if someone can show me how they use it.
If you are, then
great.
so is everybody else too.
So is everyone else. But I feel like I'm a pretty good user with it. Could I be better? Could I be a faster typer? Yeah. Could I know more? Sure. But like far as like using the tool, code completion's where it's at. It's pretty good. And then chatting with it is kind of bad. Have I used every code tool on the planet? No. Is Gemini better? Those guys in that thread are arguing about Gemini's better. I can't imagine it being 1,000% better where suddenly, now I can be a 10x developer. I am using Gemini. No, I don't think that's the case. Or Claude or whatever. People tend to like Claude a lot. Could you use Cursor, some of the online IDEs that are integrated with AI and make things? I would highly doubt it. To me, it's still Visual Studio, VS Code for me. If you're using Java, maybe you're using a different IDE. And tools integrating that help you with completion, I think is kind of where it's at near peak. And maybe I haven't used Cursor enough to try it, but like every time I try to use ChatGPT just to generate an HTML file, it's usually boilerplate at best.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I end up just coding it by hand anyway, and sometimes I'll fiddle around with the prompting more than I could have just wrote it. And so I think that's kind of where it is.
That's true.
So I think you'll rely on it more as you're learning. Can it teach you things? 100%. Like there's times where I will, see something that's in the ghost text. I'm like, oh, what is that? Or I'll go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm trying to do this in C#. How do you recommend I do that? And I'll get some stuff. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I can say, explain that to me. And then it'll give me an explanation. I'm like, okay, that's okay. I got you. And then I can move that in. So I think it can teach you things, but you got to start with a base level to begin with for it to be really valuable. And someone shows you the syntax for the fetch API in JavaScript and you don't know what a fetch is, it's going to be really hard to put it. You can put it in and say, sure, I guess that works, Yeah,
until it doesn't, and then you have no idea how to fix it.
No idea what it is, but put it in there. That's what the AI said. So, but here's what I will say, and this is why I'm so bullish on 2025. And let's talk about AI, not only not as a threat, but as an opportunity. And I think it's what we should take is like 5 minutes here and talk about what have we been doing for the last 25 years. And I think we got like a picture here that we can show that I put up this morning. And I'm really big on this term of sources of truth. And a source of truth is like these collection of data and systems that are kind of important to everything. And so since like the early 90s or even the late 80s, we've been interacting with sources of truth various ways. And so since 97, 98, the last 25 years, we've been doing it through web. We've been building websites for this. And so sources of truth are something like a CRM. So you got your customers in there. You may have your accounting system. You may have your ERP, which would be your logistics, shipping, invoices, those kind of things. And all of those things are concrete, what I call concrete systems. And when AI first came out 2 years ago, people said, we're going to take the source of truth, I'm going to drop it into OpenAI, and now my interface is going to be a chatbot. And I can chatbot. Can you imagine going to OpenAI, chatbot, your company loads in all your payroll records, loads in all of your vacation information, and it says, whatever AI tells you have on vacation, that's what you got. So like, and it would be wrong sometimes and sometimes not completely accurate. What is the handbook for the employee? I don't know. Like, let me make it up for you. That's kind of what OpenAI kind of does. And so while it can generate text or generate responses, if you want it to be completely concrete, you need to go back to the source of truth, which typically is then still going to be for the foreseeable future in a SQL database or some kind of data store of some type. So that's what we've been doing the last 25 years. And we've built apps on top of apps. So we built apps on SAP, we built apps on QuickBooks or accounting systems. We build apps on, whatever. We make our own CRMs. Maybe we make a custom one because we feel like the ones we buy off the shelf aren't good enough. And that's what we've been doing for the last 25 years is building custom apps on top of sources of truth, because a company, in order to do what it has, will have multiple of these. We also have sources of truth that are not domain specific. So we have HR, accounting systems, we have invoice systems, we have all these other types of systems. But then we have things like user identity. Are we really going to say in ChatGPT, hey, I've got a website, secure it for me, and type that in the chatbot and expect it to do it correctly? No, typically it's more important than that. And we'll go to a vendor like Auth0 or Okta, and we'll use that security system, that OAuth system for it. So here's the domain sources. Yeah.
It kicks me out.
So we have, version control. And then we have this other one that I think is real important. It's custom data. I forgot about this. Custom data. Think about a company like a Peloton that you're out there exercising on a bike, something I have, and this is where I get the idea from. But every time I do a workout, it collects information about my pedal, my power, my heart rate, where all of this custom data that is unique to me and probably unique across the industry of anyone else. No one else has a custom data set like Peloton. And so that's stored. You can't just drop that into an AI and expect it to be accurate. It's too important for it to be missing. And you can take really important systems like banking core systems. We can't drop that in AI either and say, let's make sure that all of my deposits and everything about my money, it's going to be generally, the responses are going to be, an LLM is going to take responsibility for that, for updates, to make sure it's accurate, anything like that. It's too important. It'll never be thrown into an LLM or anything like that. However, the opportunity isn't that LLMs are going to replace us all. It's that we're going to integrate LLMs on top of these systems again. So what we did for the last 25 years, I think we're going to be doing it for the next decade, which is we're going to write AI agents on top of these things. The cool part of this, it needs to be coded. And so I've got some other slides about AI agents and what they are. And it's just like, it can integrate with a source of truth to ensure that the actions and outputs are accurate, reliable, updated information. So, and then I've got some, if we go to the next one, some kind of things like that we'll build. For example, for an AR agent, we could build something like decision support. And so we could analyze an employee performance, document that's in the HR system, and then a known set of training programs, we could recommend training programs for that person. Say, hey, we saw your last performance. This thing says, take these courses that we have, or something like that. I think more important is like repetitive tasks can be automated based on the source of truth. And the recommendation comes from the data, not from the AI, but the AI can like do these concrete things over and over again. For example, it can prepare a tax report. We know what the tax report's supposed to be. We have the data that we need to do. And now what we need to do is compile that data into this known entity, the tax report. You know, we can reconcile accounts. We have transactions coming in the source of truth. And now we need to take that credit card data and put it inside of the ledger. And so those are things that can be pulled in. And we can also generate checks and balances with humans inside of an AI agent. And I've got some other ones that we think about that we'll be writing too. So real-time monitoring, we can monitor on anomalies, fraud systems that are going to be built based on AI. They're already doing this where they can look at financial transaction and find something that's in or out of the norm for somebody, or maybe a brand new store, or things like impossible transactions where like I was in person at Atlanta, Georgia store and in a Topeka, Washington store
Right.
at the same time. That's one of those are probably fraudulent. And then we've seen the most famous ones, chatbots, virtual assistants. But when we're generating these queries, we're not making it up. We're not just loading it into, and this is actually the easier one for an LLM to actually do, where you can load a knowledge base in. It can be fairly good. But if you need to do something like look at an inventory system or a sale or a purchase, it's still going to integrate directly with the SQL and look at the actual information for that person after it validates you through a user store, after it figures out who you are as the customer, and then it can do things automatically for you. But all of those systems will be what I would call discrete or concrete systems. In other words, the chatbot is just saying, I know what you're asking. I can figure that out. Based on that, here's the capabilities I have, and I know what this request means. And that's something, Siri couldn't do. I mean,
Right.
So that is an advancement. What we're seeing, it is a very cool advancement where we can build a chatbot interface for certain scenarios. What I said from AI day one is that the chatbot won't be the last interface. It's not right for everybody. But the other thing that we're seeing is with Meta, they've got glasses coming out. A lot of vendors will have glasses coming out, and suddenly you have vision and voice as your primary input instead of keyboard and mouse.
Right.
So that is only possible now because of those AI systems can look at those images and determine what it is you're looking at. And then they can take the voice and turn that into speech to text, which has been around for quite a while. But now with AI, we can take that text and say, I know what you're asking me now. And then that can go off to a concrete system to figure that out. So I think those are the types of UIs or the screen switches that we can see where I see this in glasses, I see it in cars, especially driverless cars. I've been saying this for 5 years. If they ever become a reality, which we've seen some taxis now that are actually pretty good in certain scenarios.
Have we? I don't know. Those Elon ones? I don't know. They're real.
But the Waymo has
Waymo works, kind of.
Yeah. So we can talk to our cars right now, and some cars we can talk to, but you can see I don't have to drive the car, then maybe I can use that windshield as a screen. I can talk to it. I can get more information. I can do things, and we'll use voice to do that instead of a mouse and keyboard. And that's an invention, I would say, become more close to reality over the last 2 years than it would say was 5 years ago. Even though these voice systems have happened, they were very discrete. It only could do whatever you pre-programmed in, and then it had a hard time figuring out what you were saying. Did it match any one of these? And the LLMs now can say, I can take next to anything, misspellings and everything, and go, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And that's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty good. And I see that. So one of the primary skills you'll see is integrating with these OpenAI, like APIs or Claude APIs, and then coming up with creative ways to put that inside of an application, roll that together. The cool thing is, Kevin, you still got to code it.
Yeah, I think
It's
that's the
not
bottom
gonna be
line
out
here,
of-
right? The bottom
Yeah,
line
you
here, there's a
yeah.
ton of software going to be written. An
Yes.
absolute ton of software going to be written
Right.
here.
And I would say that Bureau of Labor Statistics says that we need 16% growth year over year till 2032. And we're at 2025 right now, so over the next 7 years. I see.
Yeah, I still have that year.
This came out several years ago. This doesn't account for AI integrations. And so you could see this doubling. Like, in other words, okay, we had to do this many systems before, but now we want all this other new things. And I think it's be similar to when web came out. So where if you looked at development jobs from 91 to 98, and then you looked at web development jobs from 98 to 2015, it was really strong, even with a downturn like the financial crisis in 2008, even with the tech bubble in 2002. Like, even when all those things happened, we were still writing code and we were still hiring as many people as we could hire to do this. And it's nowhere, anywhere in shape. I think people are very negative because they listen to news, and news is very negative in general. That's, if it bleeds, it leads. If it's on fire, that's what's on the 6 o'clock news.
Yep.
They never say man saves cat from a tree, that's not important anymore.
They try. It's usually the last story on the news, isn't it? They try and have one of
Yeah.
those like feel-good
Yeah.
stories at the end. It's like, we've given
Yeah.
all you the doom and gloom. Here's the cat being saved
Yeah.
on the tree. Like,
But if a man tries to save a cat and falls down the tree and dies,
it's leading.
that's the first one. Don't be saving those cats. You're stupid. So like but I think that's what it is, and what they neglect to ask the question is, and this is what I'd ask everyone in the audience: do you believe there'll be more or less systems over the next 10 years? And that's the fundamental. And if you know, and I'm telling you it's more, but if you answer yourself more, that means there's going to be more developers than there are right now. It's still growing. There isn't a cap. It's not oversaturated like people say on Reddit. It's oversaturated. You can't find a job. There are no new jobs. In fact, I see this all the time. Seniors are taking junior level jobs because they can't find a job. And I'm like, no, the senior level guy that's taking a junior level job didn't keep his skills up to date. I promise you, true senior levels, they're not taking junior jobs. They don't have to. They get 3 offers when they leave. I mean, like, it's still that way. If you're highly skilled, it's going to be important.
Yeah, you're comparing it to a market that existed before. That's the thing, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not the same market. It's different. Like we said, skills are higher than you think, or a lot of people think. People are complaining on Reddit of the lower skilled people that are like, they can't do the same thing they did 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah,
it's a
you
constant
can't.
learning process.
You definitely can't. It's not. It's not like it was.
But here's the exciting thing. I would say this: even when you take something as advanced as a meta glass, like there's going to be skills. It's still web development, even though it's may not be HTML front ends. But you're still communicating over HTTP to some API, some interface, something, whatever, that's going back there. And then as they connect these things to more concrete sources of truth, that's going to be doubly true. I'm calling an API somewhere on the back end that I wrote so I could hook it up to this glass to give myself a new user interface that hasn't been seen before. Or I want to use voice only. How do I make a voice only system that can give a decision maker at the C-suite level a better way to query the sales data for the fourth quarter, because he has a hard time running the report. And those are real problems that people run into. How can I get this guy to run this on the portal? He doesn't know where to click or whatever. But if I can give him a voice interface and he can just ask the question, that thing can figure out what his query is based on to run the right concrete query. That's where we're going to have a lot of innovation, a lot of things that people are going to do. On top of that, for the next 10 years, we're still going to build it the regular way, where people won't believe in this AI thing because of cost. They'll say, yeah, it's cool, but how much is it per query? When I could just run, I don't have a query per query on a SQL query. I'll just still use a mouse and keyboard and make them click the run report button. So that's the thing that's still going to happen. Those systems are going to be built. AI integrated systems are going to be built, or what we call agents. All of this will make it explode again. That's what I see in the marketplace. And that's going to include people from overseas and onshore and offshore and everywhere in between. We'll
talk about cost in a second, but we've talked about this a bunch. Like, more systems, new system, new challenge applications. We've talked about this. Like, AI doesn't like give you less developers. We don't keep the same level of like productivity. No. We want productivity to go up. So we increase people, we increase AI, productivity goes up, challenges go up, we build newer things we couldn't build before. We don't stay stagnant. People think like there's this bar that we're just sat right here and this is where we're going to be, and AI like, oh, we can reduce the people because we can still stay here with AI. Which isn't true anyway, but we're not going to do that. We're going to keep going up. We're going to keep producing newer, more technical things. We're going to get more advanced things. That's what's going to happen. 100%. It always has.
It always has. Yeah. And then, and I do think there's a large majority of people in my space here, like the education space, that like to rail on education companies because they don't want to learn the next new thing. They just don't. And I embrace the next new thing. That's what I do. Even in my late age in life, I still like to learn new things, still like to learn. And that's where you have to be in this market, is you got to learn the next thing to stay relevant, And so, if you don't know CSS at this point, you're solely a back-end developer. I think the front end and back end, I think those things are going to merge where they're expect you to know both, at least to some degree. You can't sit there and say, I don't know where the button goes. You put it wherever you want. That's just no longer acceptable. And so I think that's what's concerning some people. They want to learn newer things to do that. They don't want to switch frameworks. They don't want to learn what's the latest or React. They want to stay doing it like they used to do it and stay stagnant, and then they age out. What I'd say that age out could happen at 57 or 27.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like if you don't know how to do it, you don't know how to do it. And so I think that's the thing that you're challenged with. But for the people that are industrious, that want to do this for a living, and it is fun, a lot of people here are making a living out of it. It's it's going to be a pretty wild ride. I think it's definitely equal to, maybe not quite as equal, but very similar to 97. And if you're old enough like me, where you're around in 97, like everybody and their mother who had a website got funded. And this is the same thing you're seeing happen. If you just have AI in your thing,
yeah.
They're funding these projects right and left. Are they all going to work? Nope. Are we going to see an AI bubble? 100%. Like, just like we did with the tech bubble with websites, we'll see it. But that's not going to slow down the amount of people that are going to write code for a living, because there's too much opportunity here to do things that we couldn't really do before. And then you have sometimes other advancements like these vision inside the glasses, driverless cars. Those two inventions alone could bring out a whole slew of apps that we really can't do yet. If you're going to walk around, if everyone's walking around with glasses, there's a whole fleet of new category of apps that are going to get built.
Oh yeah.
You know, if you especially just think about the office environment that is maybe in a manufacturing place or an industrial environment, and everyone in the company has Meta glasses on because that's just the way it is. You can look at machines, you know, if you're an AC repairman, you go look at a machine and you can just look at it, it can scan it and go, okay, this is the H1000, you know, whatever it is,
right.
You know, like,
and your user manual's right there.
Yeah, right there. It's like, I think I know what's wrong with it. I see it, you know, like, you know, and like, and he's still got to fix it. Notice we're still fixing things. We're still using our hands. The robot's not doing that. And continually, it won't happen that way. So like, I think that's where the invention's going to come out, and people are going to write those things. They're going to get paid to do it. And that is the opportunity. So hopefully that encourages you guys out there. So
one thing we haven't talked about yet, which we talked about earlier, because we had a conversation about this, talking about this, and you hinted on it a little bit earlier, but cost versus benefit of AI. That's another deciding factor on like a company level, right? A company's going to look at something and be like, okay, so AI benefits us this way, but it costs us this amount of money. And we talked about this story because we were looking at this before. The fact that they put up that ChatGPT Premium Pro, whatever it was, the highest tier of ChatGPT, $200 a month. And Sam Altman came out and said, yeah, we still lose on that. We still lose at $200 a month, $2,400 a year, and they're still losing on it. And we know from experience, when you build something with AI and you start putting volume through it, it's expensive. It's expensive. It racks your bill up. So you're going to look at like, do we even need that? Is it even worth it?
And the reason Microsoft and Google and Apple and all these companies, and Apple to a lesser degree, but the other ones, Amazon or whatever, is telling you that this is coming, and guess what, we're going to change the world, is because they've invested billions of dollars into AI. Billions. They're running billions of dollars, and they need to sell seats to that. And they either got to get it through volume or monthly fees. And OpenAI, obviously, they don't have enough people in volume to do it, because as they increase more customers, their usage goes up, data center goes up, power goes up, and they haven't figured out like the cost benefit of that. They're still losing money.
Yeah,
and that's why there's going to be a pullback in this until there's an invention where we can run a competitive LLM on disk, you know, on my device, you know, whether that's
which is coming. It's
coming. Yeah,
we have some that you can do, but again, we talked about that. It's got to then be niche. We don't need the AI model to be able to do everything. We need to do whatever our core thing is. The 5 or 6 repetitive actions that it needs to do, or you know, and it just needs to be really good at those, and then we can have it run locally. But my kind of like thought on that too is that's only going to be that way for a while. That it's free. Let's say free, like the Llama model is now free, right?
Yeah.
It's only free until it dominates.
Facebook will keep it free forever, right?
No, of course they won't. Of course they won't. As soon as everybody's using Llama, hey, you want the latest version 27? Oh, that's a small fee for that. That's how it works. This thing isn't free. It's costing.
But I will say this:
the model will cost.
Even if you're running it locally on disk, that's still the company might say, we've got to get off this Azure AI thing. It's costing us $100,000 a month, and the developer will come out and say, I think we can get most of that out running it locally, but he's got to build the app around that again.
Yeah.
And maybe they have to retool the app, or maybe they can use the same kind of code they're using now. But like, still, there'll be an effort, a development effort. Again, the people will get paid. And I think as developers, the most thing you want in life is change. Most of us don't want change, but I'm telling you right now, when things change, that's money, man, for you. So like, think about, embrace the change, embrace these things that are happening, become an expert on those things, and you'll do well. Either someone will pay you to do it, or you can start your own company. You can do whatever you want to do, but you got to embrace the change, invest in yourself, your learning, your knowledge base, and keep up to date. And that's why I think we're still going to be here teaching people how to code, because we're going to hit another golden age of doing this again. I think it's going to be really similar. The next 7 years is going to be pretty hot. And a lot of people are going to come up in 20, 30, 5 years from now and go, wow, people are still coding.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know?
I thought AI and robots replaced those years ago.
Yeah, I thought that was going to happen. It's kind of like flying cars. Yeah, we can build them, but whatever.
Yep.
Maybe finally we'll see them.
Maybe. Speaking of starting your own company, by the way, Foundry here quit his job last year, started his own business, developing websites and automation for businesses. There you go. Awesome.
Yes,
that's super
100%,
good.
man. Yeah,
that's
put AI on it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you haven't done that yet, definitely do that. Think about, like, if you can pitch like an idea to a company that has AI too. Like, yeah.
Yeah, if you have an agent that's going to one of these sources of truth, like QuickBooks or SAP or something like that, that's gold money. So.
Definitely. Let's do a couple of other comments here, and I have a question for you at the end too. Let's see. Sean was talking to Kevin in chat here, basically talking about back to the AI Copilot thing, using it like, can you explain X to me? Can you explain what the coding's doing? Love using this type of thing, a new concept. Yeah, it's good like that, definitely. Because you're giving it kind of a concrete something.
Someone else's code, and you're like, what the crap is this?
I think it works well because you're giving it something concrete, and it can work on that concrete thing, versus asking it this abstract question that has a million answers. There can only really be kind of one answer, because you're giving it the answer. You're just asking it to interpret that concrete thing and give you the interpretation of it, right? I think that's why it does work well like that. I use it like that.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Simon says, I had to turn off AI code completion in Xcode the other day as it was working too well, providing the entire solution to the problem I was trying to solve as part of my learning.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes I would say this, it's overly commutative sometimes, and I would say even for me, I will get way too much. I'm like, dude, I'm not ready for that yet. Like, slow your roll here. Don't give me the entire thing, because I can't look at that in a ghost text. And so sometimes the ghost text goes off the page and you're scrolling and looking at it. And so I'm just hitting escape and saying, no, I don't want that, because it's too much at once.
I've also seen situations where you've been writing code in some of the videos I've edited, and it's given you, like, the code completion Copilot has given you like 20 lines of code. And then you've gone back and changed it for like one line. Like, I mean, like, that's not what I wanted to do at all. It's not like there's a one-line version thing. It's like just setting off some kind of crazy tangent, trying to do something completely different. And it's like, no, I actually wanted to do this. And I've seen that quite a lot, because it's weird to watch, because it shoots off the bottom of the page. I'm like, what's going on here?
And I do turn it off too sometimes, Simon. I mean, I'm with you on that one for sure.
Definitely. Brian, thank you so much for the super chat.
Yeah, Taco Tuesday. Let's go. Go to the Taco Shack out here in Kernersville.
We do. There's a great place just up the road from the office, isn't there? Have you been to that one? The little.
Oh yeah,
I go there all the time. It's so good.
He knows me by my.
It's so
my first
good.
name.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, I get the. There's a chicken burrito there. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Yes, Brian. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you for that. Definitely. Let's see. What you want to say here then? I want more AI in video games. GTA 6 with AI NPC, short-term memory. Imagine NPC you can fully converse with. Did you see this, Sean? Go look at what NVIDIA announced yesterday. They announced
they're showing stuff like that.
They have an AI, so they have one even better. They don't have just an NPC that's playable. They have it is, but it's your teammates. They have, I think it's PUBG something they're calling it, PUBG AI something. NVIDIA just announced it yesterday. You're gonna have a teammate that will loot for you, that will share things with you, that will play in the game with you like your buddy, but it's AI. They just announced it, and it's coming out like here soon, I guess. So AI is gonna get shoved into video games for sure. It's a great use for it.
Can I use it to grind the things I don't want to grind for? You know, find all the flags in Assassin's Creed.
Maybe, maybe, yeah. That would be
all
good,
the Riddler
like,
trophies in Batman Arkham City.
exactly.
Yeah,
Can you go find all the trophies for me? Just bring them back here. That'd be great.
Exactly.
That'd be great.
I want to take credit for it.
I'm just gonna sit here and do nothing in the game while you run out and do that. Oh, that's funny. Let me see. Let's do a question here to kind of wrap us up for the day. So Jonathan here is based in Colombia. How can I get a remote job in the United States?
Yeah, it's gonna be hard. I mean, like, but what you got to do is you got to find companies that are hiring, looking for remote work. However you do that, Odesk or somewhere, you got to find the opening, and then just apply directly for it. You know, it may be easier to work onto a consulting company in Colombia that already has U.S. contracts, and that's the quick way to do it. I would say individual to company overseas is kind of hard. You'd have to have a really good marketing plan, a website, proof of work, all those kind of things to do it. I'm not saying it's impossible, but like maybe find a local Colombian consulting company, latch on there, and then start doing it that way. That way you're working in person, but you're not, working remote for a U.S. company. I think that's the easier way to do it. Other than that, you got to find the openings here in the U.S. and contact them directly, do the whole sales and marketing thing, and explain to them why you're the best fit. Come up with rates that you think are appropriate. I
think you're going to find it's usually through a third party, isn't it? Those things. Companies tend to not find their own people outside of the US. They'll have a third party that works with somebody. When I worked back at DHL a long while ago, they had a team in India, but they didn't hire that team in India directly. They went through a third party, and they had that offshore team working through a third party. I'd always worked.
There's reasons for that. It's called general liability insurance, errors and emissions insurance that you got to have in place, especially if you're working for a large bank or something like that. If something goes wrong, the bank has to have recourse, and so they do that through insurance policies and contracts and things like that. So there's a lot that goes into building out remote. Now, can you find a singular one-man shop operation that just needs something built? Yeah, you can probably do that through Odesk or, these different kind of like, Fiverr, those types of things.
Yeah, I think if you're not going through like a third party company, it's going to be more contract stuff for sure. It's going to be little smaller things, which, are probably not going to pay as much. Then you're constantly fighting to try and find work. Then I think that just makes it way more difficult and less reliable because you don't know what you're actually going to be.
But if you're in Colombia, I don't know how it compares here in the US, but maybe you're less expensive, so you can compete harder on some of those other websites. But you got to have proof of work, number one, and they've got to be able to give a website to give them confidence that you can do it. And then once you do that, then build up a clientele, serve them right, do them right by them always, and then you should be. It's possible. It's just a lot. It's just longer than you would think. So.
Yeah. Let's do one last comment here.
Yeah.
Not a question, more of a comment. Troy says there are tons of software jobs, especially manufacturing companies, automating tedious tasks, working with inventory, shipping, costing, accounts, online shopping, ERP, CRM reports, and engineering. 100%. Troy, this is
all this are sources of truth. That's we've been doing that for 25 years, man. Yep. So
these are kind of places our students go to a lot.
Yeah,
they're doing
people don't
these
understand
things.
This is completely unautomated in a lot of places, and they just need. They're just trying to do the basics things, man. They're not trying to do anything fancy, but like a lot of times it's like an order comes in. I need to automate that order through a process.
It's like inventory management is like, you'd think that's such a solved problem, but it's not for everybody. It's just not.
Yeah, or they've bought an ERP, but it's complicated and they want parts of it, but then they want this other thing that they want to roll out to the shop floor that's a little simplified, and the ERP doesn't quite do that. So they'll integrate with the ERP to make it custom to what they want to do. And that's where we call customization or integration on top of these sources of truth. It's very common, very common. SAP doesn't do this, so we needed to do this. And so then you integrate with those things. Or we have this accounting system, this ERP system, this customer relationship system. We need things that cross these things, and they'll build apps on top of all three of them that they communicate with. And so that's very common. He's exactly right. That's where the job market is.
Right.
That's where it is. It's not in Amazon, Microsoft, and Apple and Facebook. I mean, that's part of it, but there's more to this than social media companies, or big tech companies.
Yep.
They just happen to be the most famous people, and they have a layoff. Everyone says, "Oh, the sky's falling." They're like, not really. I mean, like,
It
there's
is
other
in that
companies
little,
out there,
that little corner of the world, maybe.
that corner of the world, so
Yeah. Jim, we will probably talk about this next week. Maybe we'll
Yep.
give we might do a demo of the new app or something at some point here.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to do it today and complicate this, but we'll probably do it here shortly.
we're recording it. Put it that way. Like, and there's thousands of hours in this thing that we've recorded. So
Yeah.
not thousands, hundreds. I would say hundreds. I mean,
The final product will be, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, easily. I don't know how many it is yet because we haven't tallied it up
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's it. Let's get out of here. Let's go spend Brian's.
Spend our money, Kevin. Let's go get some tacos. So, like, appreciate it, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Very much appreciated. Very, very much. We'll be back next week.
Next Tuesday.
Same place.
Next Tuesday.
Same time.
All right. See you guys.